Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a fascinating, highly effective, science-backed protocol from our source material that's been used on over 2,000 clients to actually spot, reduce, and shrink stubborn belly fat. If you've ever thought it was literally impossible to target belly fat, well, the biology we are about to look at is probably going to change your mind.
So here is our agenda for today's explainer. We'll start with the silent killer inside you, move into the Japanese walking technique, spark up the gut fire protocol, break down the double fasting approach, and finally, wrap it all up with your daily action plan.
All right, part one, the silent killer inside you. Let's understand the biology of belly fat.
Okay, let's clear up the absolute biggest myth in weight loss right out of the gate. All fat is definitely not the same. You've got subcutaneous fat, that soft stuff you can pinch around your waist or your legs. It's annoying, sure. But visceral fat? That's a completely different beast. It operates under entirely different biological rules inside your body and is vastly more dangerous. Honestly, think of a visceral fat as this toxic sludge that literally wraps itself tightly around your internal organs. Imagine trying to run a race with a severely swollen, inflamed knee. You'd be limping, right? You'd be struggling to even move. Well, that is exactly what visceral fat does to your insides. It's constantly pumping out these inflammatory cytokines, practically suffocating your pancreas, your heart, and trapping you in this awful, vicious cycle of high blood sugar, severe insulin resistance, and even fatty liver disease. But here's where it gets really exciting. Recent MRI and CT scans show something absolutely wild. By targeting very specific biochemical pathways, we can actually reduce visceral fat by up to 37% in just 12 weeks. And the most mind-blowing part of all this? You can do this without even losing total body weight. So yeah, even if you look skinny on the outside, you can profoundly transform what's happening on the inside. Which naturally brings us to the big question. How exactly do we actively target and turn on these specific biochemical pathways? Well, the protocol outlines 3 mechanical rules to get it done. Which brings us to section 2, the Japanese walking technique, our very first mechanical rule. Now check out this data, because it's super counterintuitive. Walking actually taps into your fat stores way more efficiently than running does. When you run, you're getting about 50% of your energy from fat, but moderate walking? That pushes your fat burn ratio all the way up to roughly 70 to 80%. That makes it the absolute superior mechanism for melting visceral fat. Plus, you're not pounding your joints into dust. But we're not just talking about a casual evening stroll here. This is a highly strategic, fasted morning protocol. If you knock out 60% of your daily steps in a fasted window right after waking up, your body literally has no choice but to burn visceral fat as its primary fuel source. Think about it. Since you finished dinner by 8 p.m. the night before, you wake up with your liver glycogen completely depleted and your insulin levels totally flatlined. You drink a black coffee, step out the door, and boom, your biological fat-burning furnace is forced to turn on. And to really supercharge this, the research suggests pairing your morning steps with this exact 30-minute Japanese walking sequence. You start with a 5-minute gentle warm-up. Then you hit a 3-minute brisk speed walk. We're talking 70 to 80% of your max heart rate, where holding a conversation is pretty tough. Then you recover with a 3-minute moderate kind of window shopping pace. You repeat that brisk to moderate cycle 5 times and wrap up with a 5-minute cool down. You're literally getting 10 times the cardiovascular benefits in just half an hour of effort. And the real-world results? They are just phenomenal. Doing this regularly has been shown to shrink waistlines by a staggering 6 centimeters, that's over 2 inches, in just 5 months. Plus, it boosts your VO2 max by 10 to 15%, which is a huge predictor of longevity, and shows a 3 times improvement in blood pressure. Let's move to section 3, the gut fire protocol. This is mechanical rule number 2. For this to work, avoiding ultra-processed foods is completely mandatory. Why? Well, think about a crisp apple. It's packed with fiber, meaning your body actually has to work to break down the energy slowly, which feeds the good bacteria in your gut. Ultra-processed candy, on the other hand, acts like an insulin fire hose. It instantly spikes your blood sugar, leaves you crashing hard, and literally commands your body to store visceral fat. So, to actively fight off those crazy insulin spikes, the protocol introduces 2 what we call GPS-guided fat-burning drinks. First up, apple cider vinegar. Just 1 tablespoon in 8 ounces of water 10 minutes before a meal. Second is black green tea. Aim for 3 to 5 cups daily, about 30 minutes before eating.
That green tea contains a super potent catechine called EGCG, and it acts almost like a heat-seeking missile, specifically hunting down that bad visceral fat.
Now, you might be wondering, why the apple cider vinegar? Well, it's all about an enzyme called AMPK. The acetic acid in the vinegar flips this AMPK master switch on, making your cells incredibly responsive to insulin. When your cells are that responsive, you just need way less insulin floating around in your blood to get the same job done, and less insulin equals significantly more visceral fat burning. It also drastically slows down how fast food leaves your stomach, turning that blood sugar fire hose into a nice, manageable, steady stream. You'll want to pair this with gut fire-friendly foods, things like wild-caught salmon and whole eggs. These high-protein foods actually have a thermic effect 2 to 6 times higher than carbs, essentially turning your digestion into a literal calorie-burning furnace. Throw in Greek yogurt with Lactobacillus gasseri or fermented stuff like kimchi and kefir, and you perfectly balance your microbiome. Oh, and those omega-3s in the salmon, they actively block the stress hormones that force your body to store belly fat. It's incredible. All right, moving right along to Section 4, the double fasting approach. Mechanical rule number 3. So here's how the double fasting schedule breaks down. 6 days a week, the routine follows a pretty classic 16-8 split. You stop eating at 8 p.m. and you don't start again until noon the next day. But the real magic happens once a week with the 24-hour reset. Let's say you stop eating at 8 p.m. on a Sunday. You simply don't eat again until 8 p.m. on Monday. And honestly, because you are sleeping for 8 of those hours, physically, it's really only 16 waking hours of effort. Totally doable. And the sources point out an ultimate hack here. Whenever you break these fasts, always do it with 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar about 10 minutes prior. Combining your fasting window with apple cider vinegar perfectly primes your insulin response, maximizing your fat burning exactly as you transition from that fasted state back to a fed state. Because fasting isn't just some trick to skip meals, right? It's a profound biological reset. That 24-hour fast triggers autophagy, which is basically your body's cellular cleanup crew, taking out the damaged cells, giving you incredible anti-aging benefits. It promotes massive spikes in human growth hormone, which builds muscle and burns fat. It dramatically drops whole body inflammation, lowers blood pressure, and literally flushes bad bacteria out so your gut can finally get a completely clean slate to recover. Okay, Section 5. Let's pull all these rules together into your daily action plan. When you lay it all out, the day is actually perfectly balanced. You wake up, grab that black coffee, and knock out your fasted Japanese wok. At noon, you prime your system with ACV and dive into some high-protein blueberry overnight oats. Midday, you're having green tea, followed by omega-3 packed salmon nori tacos with probiotic kimchi. Afternoon brings more green tea and some plain Greek yogurt. And finally, a pre-8 p.m. dinner, say scrambled eggs with spinach, primed again with a little apple cider vinegar. It's structured, it's really delicious, and it's biochemically engineered to melt fat. And the brilliant math behind adding that weekly 24-hour fast is this. Burning 1 pound of fat requires a 3,500 weekly caloric deficit. By fasting for a full 24 hours just once a week, your calorie intake for that day is essentially 0. That creates almost your entire 3,500 calorie deficit for the week in just a single day through your baseline burn, entirely removing the stress and mental fatigue of having to micro-diet all week long. Visceral fat simply doesn't stand a chance against structured biology. The roadmap provided by the research is crystal clear. So I'll leave you with this. Pull out your phone, check your step count right now. Which of these 3 mechanical rules are you going to implement tomorrow morning to finally flip the switch on your biological furnace? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.